What did Chris Brown's face look like? Deeply ingrained issue. What is the person doing to correct and change that behavior? They have control when the police are there. Even when the police hit, okay, we'll do whatever you want to this person who doesn't love themselves enough to demand better. Why can't we just have differences of opinion? Hello knockouts, Tonya Tko here, and I want to talk about Chris Brown today. I took a few little notes, but for the most part I want us to just have a conversation. Why people still support Chris Brown. Today I want to talk about domestic violence and the two opposite ends of this argument. The people who will not forgive Chris Brown, as well as the people who do. And so I want to jump right into that. Let me do the intros first. I am Tonya Tko, and I am a self-love specialist from TonyaTko.com. My passion is self-love and relationships. So on this channel, we talk about self-love through relationships and these different types of relationships that reflect back to us things that are going on the inside. So we talk about boundaries and how to be in really healthy relationships. I assist people with loving themselves and each other. So I'll assist you with loving yourself and other people. All right, so let's jump right into it. Chris Brown, oh gosh, he's back in the news again. This time somebody says that they had to get a restraining order against him for stalking. And you know what? Forgive any sounds that you hear. If you saw my last video, you know that I am on the road. So this video is actually being powered by solar. So live green, live clean. I'm really happy about that. So you see what I'm saying with the noise, right? But anyway, so just ignore those noises, ignore anything that has nothing to do with this video, because I really want us to talk. I posed the question on Facebook, and is it just me, or has Facebook become like a really weird place? So like I posed the question on Facebook, and the question I basically asked, why does anybody still support Chris Brown? And the way people have come out with anger and vitriol, and I don't know. That's another question I want to ask you guys. Is it just my experience, or are other people experiencing this too? That Facebook is like this landmine where you publish some comment or some feeling that you have, and people just really go over the top, like attacking you personally, pulling and dragging you, and it's like, why can't we just have differences of opinion? I'm confused about that. I'm hoping that we can have a conversation here on YouTube. So Chris Brown, okay, so he's in the news now. Somebody saying that he was stalking her. Another woman last month said that she was raped and assaulted at his house, and that he created this environment where this orgy was going on. He had security take people's phones and wouldn't allow them to leave, and the girl was sexually assaulted by a woman on her period, and then by one bodyguard twice, or two different bodyguards, I'm not sure, but she was assaulted. And then this history of violence and lashing out and losing his temper publicly, and his assault of Rihanna in 2009. And so I'm going to tell you some of the things that I've heard. People are saying, well, he was a child then. I'm going to go down the whole list, and then I'll give my feedback. They're saying he was a child. That was 10 years ago. He apologized. Rihanna forgave him. Rihanna hit him first. So those are the 5 biggest arguments that I'm hearing for why people still support him. And so he was a child. I don't know how long we're considering people to be quote-unquote children. The event happened in 2009, and he was born in 1989, which would have made him somewhere around 20 at the time. So child, I don't know about that. People are saying that it was 10 years ago. Okay, so it was 10 years ago when he assaulted Rihanna. But since then, we've seen his violent outbursts, and we've seen the news reports of his violence against men, mainly against women. I'm hearing that his child's mother has a restraining order against him, that he hit both Karuchi and some other woman whose name starts with K. Tell me her name in the comments, because I don't remember it right now. They're saying that he apologized. Okay. Remember when we did that video talking about cheating on your spouse? Besides an apology, also, when we talked about the cheating on your spouse, as well as that other post that I put up, where the girl was sleeping with the two kids and her child's father had taken a picture and talked about how he had verbally abused her for so long, but then he was putting up this post about how now he sees that he's been abused, well, whatever the case. So we talked about those things and say, okay, yes, apologies are nice. And if you're going through something in your personal life in which a person apologizes to you, oh yes, okay, wonderful. Apology is beautiful. What is the person doing to correct and change that behavior? So yeah, okay. So a person can apologize for hitting you. A person can apologize for being abusive towards you. But these things are all programmed into their subconscious mind. What are they doing about rewriting that subconscious programming? What intensive activity are they participating in to really truly find healing? Or are they just saying, I'm sorry, and then I'm sorry again in the future? I don't know. So it's like, okay, so he apologized, but what intensive therapy did he go through? He went into rehab. In the rehab center, they talked about his anger management, but did he participate in intensive therapy to really get down to the root? From what we hear, he was raised in an abusive household where his stepfather battered Chris Brown's mother, and he witnessed this, so it was programmed into his subconscious mind. So okay, yes, so he apologized. What else did he do besides the apology? He's still smashing out windows on Good Morning America, punching people in clubs. Women are accusing him of punching them, threatening to kill them, aiming guns at them, and all of this stuff. So it's like, none of us were there in the car with him and Rihanna. Some people are saying that she hit him first. You know, we're going to talk about that in the next one. Okay, it was 10 years ago. Okay. And even I took it with a grain of salt when the event first happened. I was disgusted by those pictures, but yes, time passed by. But I remember I saw footage of him. I think it was the Good Morning America footage where he completely wilded out. This was after the Rihanna incident. He wilded out. He took a chair. I remember seeing him smashing something apart. It may have been the glass, but like I said, this was a few years ago. When I saw that again, I was like, this person has some very serious issues, some deeply ingrained issues that are not being addressed. And if you look at him now, his body's ravaged by some sort of prominent drug use. It is. Come on. Let's look really. He's ravaged by addiction. And I saw some video of him even last year where he was just incoherent. He was incoherent and just, ugh. Nonetheless, so let's talk about Rihanna forgave him. Okay. So people say Rihanna forgave him. All right. I mean, there are plenty of people who are currently in abusive relationships who have currently forgiven the person. Does that mean that other people on the outside don't have the ability to possess some sort of thought or feeling from their own point of view about the unacceptableness of that violence? This is why when it comes to situations like domestic violence and other things like that, this is why the state sues the person. Because sometimes people are intimidated, sometimes people don't feel like they deserve better, sometimes people retract, and then the state still has to pursue. When you love a person, when a person is a violent person, that's not all that they are. That's one aspect of who they are, and for the most part, they're very charming, really great people. You can get caught up in all of that greatness and the wooing and all that other stuff. It's very infrequent that the person batters you. Otherwise, you wouldn't stay in the situation because you have hope that this person will return back to who it is that you know them to be. But let's move on. Let's move on. So my question is, so because a person forgives a person who has abused them, does that mean that the abuse is still not inappropriate? Does that mean that we should not have a feeling about that abuse and advocate for this person who may not know that they're worth more than that? Like I said, I talk about self-love, and there are people who hate themselves and they self-abuse through these relationships because these relationships reflect back to them an abuse that they'd like to do to themselves, and they allow this person to abuse them. So does that mean that we should be okay with it because a person doesn't love themselves? So we should be like, okay, we'll do whatever you want to this person who doesn't love themselves enough to demand better? And then last point, Rihanna hit him first. And we talked about this in that video where that Caucasian boy started striking that man, and the man took him and threw him off of him. And remember I said every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Is the force that you're using against a person equal and opposite to the force that they used against you? What did Chris Brown's face look like after this battering? Because we saw Rihanna's face. It's like we see the faces of the abused and people like, well, don't quote unquote step up like a man if you don't want to get beat like a man. But what does it say about a person that you would beat a person who you know is weaker than you? Beat them like they are as strong as you, or use your strength on them to a point, even after they're not able to fight back. And you use your strength on them to the point that they are beat into a bloody pulp. And so I wanted to give some examples, because I read this book. If you haven't read this book by Lundy Barcroft, it's called Why Does He Do That? It's a book, the title is Why Does He Do That? And it's a book that talks about men and domestic violence. And the author talks about how these men do have control in other situations. They have control when the police are there. Even when the police hit them, they somehow manage to maintain control. When it comes to their property, they have control over whether or not they break their own property. But when it comes to you, when it comes to your property, suddenly they lose control and they start breaking your things. They start hitting you. It's like there comes a point where a person gives themselves permission to lash out. Let me give you some examples. For example, let's say there were a 2-year-old child that picked up a 2x4 and hit you in the back of the head with the 2x4 and it hurt. You turn around and you see that it's a 2-year-old. Are you going to go just punt the child up into the air? Are you going to beat the child into a bloody mess, break its neck? Or will something kick in that says, you know what? This person is smaller than I am. This person is not as strong as I am. And yes, what they did hurt, but my force against them can only go but so much. Like, okay, if a 2-year-old had a 2x4, yes, you want to get the 2x4 out of their hand. But how much force do you exert? Let's use an even more extreme example. Let's say there were a 5-year-old. Let's say the 5-year-old were angry at you and they got behind the wheel of a car and they tried to run you down. Let's say the car hit you and you fell down, but you were still able to get up and you were able to get this 5-year-old out from behind the seat. Now, the force that they gave you was a very hard force. They hit you with this car. Do you break their neck then at that point? Do you beat them until their cranium gets smashed in? It's like, what is the force that you're doing against this person? And then let's bring it up even another notch. Let's say the person is 13. This is someone's child and this 13-year-old strikes you. How much force do you give back on this 13-year-old? Are you like, okay, yes, well, you hit an adult, or even if the strike didn't hurt you, and even if it did to a certain degree, at what point do you say that you're not going to stop yourself from assaulting a person that you know is not as strong as you? Do you continue to beat them until they're incapacitated or almost dead? So I don't know. I'm hoping that we can talk about this and I can get your feedback and your point of view on it, because I'm on the end that I'm turned off. Violence is a trigger for me. I do not condone violence. That is a very hard, it's a very hard boundary of mine. I don't condone violence. And some people gave some other examples of other people who were violent and whether or not we still support them. I do not support. I don't. I get turned off. When I saw the depiction of James Brown punching Jill Scott, who was in the movie, she was supposed to be his woman. When I saw that, turned off. Johnny Depp, turned off. It's a trigger for me. And it's a personal choice. Look, I don't understand why people support, but I don't understand because it's coming from my point of view. So I'm hoping that I can hear from you all and what your point of view is on this and why. I can't. I choose not to. Because I guess I could, but it's a choice. I choose not to. I choose not to support Chris Brown. I choose not to support and give my money to people who I choose not to. I don't watch Woody Allen movies. I stopped supporting Bill Cosby. And listen, I loved Bill Cosby, or his characters that he played. I went to an HBCU because of the Cosby Show and because of A Different World. I went to a school in the Atlanta University Center because of Hillman and whatever the other school's name was from A Different World. But when I all of those allegations against Bill Cosby, as well as me seeing his behavior when he didn't realize that the cameras were rolling on him, I was done. I was done. I could not. I could not. I'll leave on this note, right? I read this quote once. If 67 men called a woman a whore or a hoe, if 67 men called a woman a hoe, we would believe them. But 67 women come forward and say that Bill Cosby drugged and raped them, and we don't believe it. And I think that we have some issues in this country with the whole male-female thing. There's something going on where we don't believe the word of woman. We always try to figure out what is it that the woman did to cause her assault physically or sexually. I don't know. Ugh. Like I said, this is triggering for me, so ugh. Anyway, your thoughts below, please. So, Tonya Tko, and I'm out. The next video that I'm going to be making is No One Is Coming to Save You. We're going to talk about your life, saving you from life or from death, and how you have to live for yourself and create the life you want. So we're going to talk about that in the next video, and I will see you guys later. Tonya Tko, and I'm out. Go out there and love one another, but most importantly, what? That's right, love yourself. Tonya Tko, and I'm out. All right, please forgive me. My mind is all over the place today. All right. So you see what I'm saying with the noise, right? But why does anybody why does anybody? All right, because a person. Sorry, my mind is just all over the place right now. So go out there and love yourself, but most importantly, no, that's not what I meant to say.